When the animated film The Nut Job was released in 2014, a lot of people were shocked that I liked it. When the sequel was released 3 years later, people were less shocked. However, there was still a dislike towards The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature, with many finding it a brainless piece of generic animated slapstick. That's a shame, as it's clear the filmmakers did listen to the criticisms of the first film and attempted to avoid what people disliked about it. I think this resulted in an improved sequel that gave the proper growth to the characters while also employing a number of creative set pieces. So what did the sequel do better? And why were people, mostly the critics and hardcore animation fans, still disappointed with the film? I'm going to discuss those things today. Let's first look at the lead protagonist, Surly, often cited as the worst thing about the first movie. He was criticized for being unlikable and only doing things for his own gain. Personally, I thought that was an obvious part of his arc, and that Surly represented a realistic portrait of squirrels. Have you looked outside and seen squirrels hanging from trees and scurrying for food? They're mischievous little animals, always on the hunt and always getting into trouble. It's obvious the filmmakers and animators studied them closely. In the sequel, we see a notable attempt to make Surly more of a hero figure, constantly trying to help the other animals, especially when the park gets destroyed by the corrupt mayor. The Surly from the first Nut Job would have laughed at the park animals and let them deal with this problem on their own, while this Surly does not waste time in figuring out a way to stop the developers. However, it's not merely a case of the filmmakers trying to get audiences to warm up to Surly. After his arc in the previous film, it would have been strange to see him revert back to his earlier personality. It makes logical story sense for him to now be trying to be the hero and save the day. We also see a closer bond with the other animals, like fellow squirrel Andy, Buddy the rat, and Precious the pug. He's not trying to take advantage of them, and while there are the occasional disagreements, they nonetheless remain focused on saving the park. We really see how much these animals have grown to care about each other and work as a team since the events of the first movie. Another criticism of the first film was the use of fart jokes and other types of lowbrow humor. Those are largely absent here. There is a vomit joke involving two dogs, but the filmmakers otherwise kept the humor mostly clean and focused primarily on slapstick and other visual gags. What's curious is that the marketers added a fart sound effect to the trailer, and my question is, why? I know animated film trailers tend to emphasize simple comedy gags as a way to sell the film to younger audiences, but this merely adds a joke that was never there. Does market research show that more people will pay to see a movie if they think there'll be flatulence-related humor? One omission I found quite odd was the character of Grayson, voiced by Brendan Fraser. I know a lot of people found his over-the-top daring-do personality to be annoying, but The Nut Job 2 does not even give an explanation for where he disappeared off to. In terms of new characters, the Kung Fu Mouse, Mr. Fang, and his army of mice are a delight. The marketing emphasized him a lot, probably because Jackie Chan provided the voice, although he's not in the movie as much as you would expect. Nonetheless, his presence is appreciated, and the animators did an excellent job of showing their fighting skills. There are scenes where seemingly hundreds of mice are on the screen at the same time, and they look incredible. Their own arc of rejecting helping the other animals because of their own experiences with developers is also well handled. There are also the villains, who are the right amount of ridiculous evil. Usually I'm not the biggest fan of the evil developer plot, but making him a mayor constantly giving bribes was a clever touch, and the fact his theme park is so shoddily and cheaply put together adds to the humor of the character, along with a strong vocal performance from Bobby Moynihan. We also have his equally evil daughter, voiced by Isabella Moner. Yes, the live-action Dora the Explorer from Dora and the Lost City of Gold. She has some funny bits with the dogs, even if she does look like they slightly adjusted the Girl Scouts design from the first film, although it could be the same character for all we know. Peter Stormare also sounds like he's having a lot of fun as an animal control officer. There's also a sweet subplot that develops between Precious and the mayor's daughter's dog, Frankie. Director Carl Brunker and the story team went all out with the various action and comedic set pieces too. Nicely building on what Nut Job creator Peter Lipinoidis accomplished with the first film and his original animated short, each sequence is filled with so much visual invention and clever sight gags. The highlights are probably when the park gets destroyed, the chase through the mayor's home, and the climax when the animals dismantle the theme park. The finale is so well constructed, and despite everything going on, Brunker manages to keep it all focused as we jump between the multiple participants. Everyone gets a moment to shine, and the blocking and direction of the scene is superbly done. I also have to mention what a beautiful looking film The Nutjob 2 is. There are plenty of stunning shots, especially in the quieter moments when Surly is reflecting and looking at the park and the city. The character animation is also wonderfully expressive, which helps in selling the slapstick. They really embrace the cartoony nature of the premise, and there's definitely a Looney Tunes influence throughout. The soundtrack was also nicely chosen, using both familiar hits like Born to Be Wild, along with Hito Pereira's energetic score. No Gangnam Style in this one. I will say that whole section where it looks like Buddy is dead does not entirely work. It feels really stretched for a scene where we know he's going to turn out okay, and we even get a flashback to Surly and Buddy as children just to elongate it even more. However, that's a minor issue, and I understand its purpose is to show how close these two are. The filmmakers were apparently confident enough in a third film being made, as there is a post-credit scene featuring Raccoon, the villain in the first Nutjob, swimming back to shore. Unfortunately, the Nutjob 2 flopped at the box office, and it looks like Toonbox Entertainment, the animation company behind the films, went bankrupt recently, even after the announcement of a television series. Red Rover, the Korean company that co-produced Nutjob 1 and 2, has retained an interest in making the Nutjob 3 though. Whether that actually happens remains up in the air. So even with the Nutjob 2 trying its best to avoid what people hated about the first film, why did so many turn their noses up at it? Well, if I'm being entirely honest, I do think there's a certain stigma against lower-budget computer-animated films not made by the major studios. Whenever a trailer for a CG family film, not by Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks, is released, it's unfortunately labeled as less sophisticated. The animation might not appear to have the sheen or the polish of a $200 million Hollywood-produced animated movie, but that does not mean the filmmakers are not putting the same effort and dedication into it. They're just working with the budget available, and I often try to keep a lookout for these independent computer-animated films, because there are gems to be found. What's disappointing is that animation fans are the most discriminating against them. The Nutjob was hated the moment the advertising campaign started, and it did not seem like it got a fair shake. Ditto for the sequel. It's unfair to expect every animated film to look and sound like a Pixar, because they don't have the backing of a billion-dollar corporation. Just something to keep in mind. Although if you don't find the Nutjob films to be funny or entertaining or charming, that's a perfectly valid opinion. For some reason, they manage to appeal to me. See you next time.